gentlemen, everyone around and in between. It is DebateSensei Limited Preparation Edition. This is where we talk about things relevant to limited preparation debate for competitive debate tournaments at the college level. So things like IPDA, NPDA, if you know what those acronyms mean, parliamentary debate. So I have with me Tim CV from San Diego State University. Thank you, Tim.
That's me.
It's you. I am Jared Kabika Miller. I am a debate coach and professor of communications, debate enthusiast. And so we are going to talk about one particular type of limited preparation debate, which is IPDA. Again, we have like a series inside of a series. This one is where we take actual topics from a recent tournament and we basically simulate the topic selection process that happens in IPDA rounds, International Public Debate Association rounds. All right.
So where did this week's topics come from?
You're the one who grabbed them. You said they were from the California State Championships, yes?
They were CCCCCCFA. It just happened a little bit ago, and this is the gold round. It's the final round. And I've got to say, this is the best round of IPDA topics I've ever seen. I can say that with confidence.
Well, we just had an episode with Paul Villa, who wrote these topics and basically ran at least the debate section of CCCFA. There's only 3 C's.
There's at least 6 or 7.
So go check out that series. You can learn a lot about Paul and his background, and he's been highly successful as a competitor and a coach, and I think that speaks volumes as to why these topics are so good.
Yeah, it's and sometimes I think tournaments will save their good topics for like late rounds and the early rounds are bad, or it's vice versa. This all the way through seemed pretty solid, but this final round's good. So, all right, let's flip a coin. Let's get into it.
Okay, so just as a quick explanation, what we do is we flip a coin to see who's on AF and neg, and then we basically go through the selection process, all right? So we are going to, here we go. Here is the coin flipper, all right? And usually what we do is, Tim, your heads your AF, tails your neg, all right? Here we go. Ooh, even a little sound. I don't know if you heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Tails your neg. All right.
Okay.
All right. All right. So that means that you strike first.
All right. As much as I actually would be down to debate any of these topics, this is honestly the one that I don't want to be on the other side of. The United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in public transport infrastructure. I don't know if it's just because I live in San Diego, but potholes are about the worst part of life here. And our infrastructure is not even the worst. Very sad stuff in the news going on in Baltimore, where infrastructure sucks in the United States and needs to be better. So I don't have a lot of good arguments on the negative, if I'm being honest. Like, I think it's just very easy to lay out all of the things that make life better when infrastructure is good on the affirmative. Also, like, good jobs and whatever. I think maybe my best arguments on the negative are that they are temporary investments at best. Like, you don't typically end up getting like long-term infrastructure investment isn't really a thing. Sure, you can maybe get, 40 good years of use out of something, or maybe a little bit longer. But also all of the jobs that are created, I think that's like a common thing that is touted on the affirmative side. It's a defensive argument, but the best I've got is that they're temporary jobs. So it's new construction on something, but it's not a career. It's not a position that stays around a while. It's more so here's something that comes open and then goes away. And I could probably argue that like temporary jobs end up having more, of a problematic position in the rest of the economy than longer term jobs. So we should focus on things that are sustaining. It's not to say, being on the negative, that I have to just say like, no, we should not substantially increase investment. I just have to say whatever you do isn't the right way to do it. So maybe I would just, pick something out of that of like, let's not invest in more, trains. Like, trains are kind of crappy. Like, they're old technology that was kind of cool, but now they just burn a lot of, it's still like diesel engines and stuff, and it's stupid technology. So maybe I just pick out of something like that, like pick one piece of, quote, infrastructure and kill that.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would love it on the affirmative because I could pick one.
Sure.
Um,
That's also true.
yeah, and then that would kind of screw over your sort of pick counter plan thing. And so if I'm just like, hey, yeah, we need to, I want to update all of the buses in the country to be electric. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, and so I'm just kind of picking out of a hat. I probably would not.
Oh, you know what? Actually, though, so important note. I was thinking about that. Buses are municipally run, so
Ah,
public transport is done at, I think, the county level. So like the OCTA buses, the Orange County Transit Authority, or the San Diego Metro Transit Authority. I think those are counties. I think I can maybe get you on like a jurisdiction thing there.
could.
But like bridges, right? Like that's
Yeah.
federal
Oh man,
stuff right
especially
there. Like that
yeah.
is low hanging fruit, and our bridges are awful, and also all the stuff in the news makes like very, very
Right.
prevalent the harms on that one. So yeah, you've got a lot to tee off on the affirmative.
Yeah, I mean, like even if I did want to go with the buses, it would be really easy just to provide a federal grant, because all it is saying is that we should
It's
invest.
true. Increase
It's like,
investment.
yeah, I don't even have to mandate that every city does it. I just like,
Yeah.
hey, it would provide enough money for them to do it, and they'll transfer over. Again, I probably wouldn't do that. That it also opens up the door for some fairly creative interpretations.
Sure.
Which I always liked to do, to the chagrin of my opponents. But something like, if I define public transportation as, if we're transporting public resources like water, and so now
Huh.
I'm going to,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and so I heard about somebody doing that one time. Oh, it wasn't just water; it was sewage.
Mm.
And so, like transporting sewage from one place to another, and so that upgrading the sewage infrastructure for anything and everything, is even one sort of interesting way to interpret that. That would, I'm sure, just frustrate the hell out of an opponent. And basically, what you're doing is you're just setting it up so you have a topicality debate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, because there's no way to prepare for that.
Yeah, but I've got good answers to it. So yeah, I mean, I will say I think this is still the worst of these topics. Very good topic, and I think it's like the worst of these topics, the ones that I would want to debate the least. So all right, that was my strike. What's yours?
Okay. Let me see here. I got to get on in my affirmative mode right here. There's one that I would love to argue on the affirmative, and so I'll leave that one.
There are so many that I really want to talk about here.
um, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this one.
No, oh man, I think that was like one of the best topics. I have not seen
Good.
that come up as a debate topic, and I love this topic.
Yeah, but again, like all these topics are pretty good. We're liking all these topics,
Yeah.
right? I think the reason I'm striking this one is because I don't want to be against just general science degrees. You know what I mean? It's like, and the fact that it's kind of a value-based one makes it a little bit more fuzzy, right? Like I could try to run a plan text on this, but if I did, I think I'm in front of the wrong judge. It might not work, and I have to prove that one is better, and you can prove that both of them are great. You know what I mean? It's like you don't necessarily have to say that science degrees are better than coding boot camps, but just that maybe we should emphasize both of them to a relatively equal degree. So, yeah, I was thinking
This one I don't feel is as good as an equal. Like I think there are some debates that are like, oh yeah, both these things are different enough that they're both good and like hold merits. These I think are fairly directly competitive enough. Like these two things come at odds with each other enough that I think you could pretty like I think that the Venn diagram overlap is small enough that I don't think I would go for their equal debate.
okay, like coding boot camp. So I'm like thinking like, how do you measure that? Because like I have to come up with a criteria on how to measure it. It's like, should we try to get more students going through coding boot camps than getting science degrees? I think that would put me at a disadvantage, right? I think in general there should probably be more science, like computer science degrees overall, or maybe not. Maybe
Why?
not.
Yeah, why?
No. I think I was overlooking the computer science degrees.
Oh yeah, you kept saying science degrees. Yeah, it's computer science degrees. So
Yeah.
that's why they're kind of at direct odds.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe that might be. It's like we need more people that can just bang out code. than that. I also was like, I think the variable of AI and how it's made coding so much easier. Uh, I haven't really gamed out how that would help me or hurt me on the affirmative, and so
Yeah.
that variable, like maybe it would help me, maybe, but I'm like, oh man, like coding is like I have been generating some amazing code so since AI. You should see some of my spreadsheets. They are fantastic. The formulas that I have are just crazy, right? And so I'm like, well, coding boot camps are not as necessary anymore, but it doesn't necessarily put me at a disadvantage. Again, it's a good topic. It's a good topic.
Yeah. Okay, so just drilling into like, all right, you are the affirmative. What is your strategy? What are you going for? Like, what are your, if you had to pick a contention or two, why are they better?
That you can get into a job a lot quicker.
Okay.
And that the skills that you learn are a lot more practical than the computer science degrees. You have a lot less prerequisites that you need to take in order to do this. And so people that want to do this can get through one of these boot camps way quicker, get into a really good paying job. Computer science degrees is a little bit more, it's almost like somewhat elitist, where it's like, hey, I need to know everything about computer science in order to just go and code for Twitter. And I'm saying Twitter on purpose.
Cost, I think, is probably maybe your biggest best, right? Like,
yeah,
computer science boot camps aren't cheap, but compared to a freaking undergraduate degree, they are a 10%, not even that probably. I think like many are like 10 grand versus you're looking at like $250,000 for a degree nowadays, for more significant institutions. So I think the cost is the one that would be the hardest to overcome. I would contend. I'm comfortable. I wanted to be this on the negative side of this one, just because if the merit is jobs, no one is hiring in the programming fields right now. Like CS used to be a bulletproof degree. Like you had a guaranteed path to a job, and there are so many people with that degree and even experience now that are laid off of big tech companies because they like laid off a ton of their staff and not finding replacement gigs. Like it is a really, really gnarly job market. So I would say in a tough job market, a CS degree is going to weigh out over a boot camp, certificate. And therefore, like, I mean, if it's the Wild West, or if it's 2018 and absolutely everybody with any coding abilities snapping up jobs left and right that are great, then sure, boot camps might be preferable. But I think because it's now become more competitive, CS is better. My biggest contention though is that boot camps, like the disadvantages to CS degrees, are equally applicable to boot camps. So it's non-unique. The like A just teaches you a skill set. CS degrees are all like, yes, there are a problem of like a lot of prerequisites. Like you're learning, you go through Calc 1, 2, and 3, and then DiffEq, and then linear, and discrete math, and all kinds of crazy math stuff that like you probably aren't using day to day. But I would argue that it teaches fundamentals more importantly, where boot camps tend to be a single language focused, and languages like rise and fall all the damn time. So you might go to a boot camp, learn one language, and then now it's obsolete. Where that argument made against CS degrees is valid, but you learn enough languages in a CS degree. Like my professors of computer science at Chapman always said, like, yeah, our program teaches you a bunch of different languages, acknowledging that they will probably be obsolete by the time you graduate. But if you learn enough languages, you know the fundamentals to be able to pick up any other language more easily.
Very true.
That's the justification is like if you get the underpinnings for it and you've got enough experience with a few, you now can you have a more portable skill set rather than like a singularly specific capability. So what I think coding boot camps do a better job of like just getting you stood up. Like you want to learn React, go. You want to learn Node, go. You like whatever that happens to be. So that would be such a fun debate. I would love to have that, just like getting into the weeds of it.
Yeah. And I overlooked the computer in the computer science thing right there, so that kind of affected it a little bit. But I still would strike this one next. So
the next one I would strike is just because I don't know enough about it. I think it's a really big topic. I would strike this one.
Okay.
The European Union is on the path to collapse.
I was toying with that one too, though. So I'm glad you struck that one.
Yes, that's the actually last one. Like that'd be the first strike on the affirmative, just because I really don't have a lot about it. So the most like that I know about it, and the best arguments I would make on it is that it's really the EU is predominantly driven by like two economies. it was 3 when the UK was part of it, where it was Germany, France, and the UK. But now it's pretty much just France and Germany. And France just had a pretty bad year. And so it's kind of like all resting on Germany's shoulders. And there's a bunch of countries that are in the EU that are kind of just dragging it down. And that puts strain on. So I think the story that I would tell on the affirmative maybe is that like that's putting too much strain on too few countries. They're not getting enough benefit from it to be the ones that are like overburdened. And therefore, if they go, if they exiting with any real intention, then yes, the entire thing would be upside down. But I think on the negative, I would probably just have to say like, let's be realistic about this. It's been around for a while. It was crazy that Brexit even happened, and unlikely that happens a bunch more times. And the UK hasn't been like doing so hot since it. It's not like the UK is like flourished because it got out from under the EU necessarily. Like transportation or like immigration things have been more of a problem for the UK. It's not that they've like solved all their problems because they're out of the EU. So I'd say like the benefits are overstated from leaving the European Union. So I think I'd have enough just like pragmatist arguments on the negative side that I'd be okay to debate it, but I really would prefer not to, because I think someone that came in with a bunch of like, yep, here's a bunch of stats on why the EU is in a really bad place and going worse, and also just on the path to, doesn't mean it has to say like in the next 2 years or the next 10 years. Just on the path to is kind of broad. That's an easier story, I think, to sell on the affirmative. So I don't want to debate against that.
Yeah. I mean, and I just did a quick search on like the countries who feel that they would be better outside of the EU, and I think like most of them have I mean, there's a few of them that are over 50%. We're looking at like Poland, and I think like Cyprus, and Italy's right on the boundary there. But I would definitely be bringing up the sort of like the right wing shift that's been happening in a lot of countries, and how that tends to be sort of isolationist and leads more and more to it. And so like it would be more about direction that it's going than outcome is the way that
on
this
the path to.
Yeah. So like, and I would be definitely clarifying that on the affirmative. I'm like, all I have to do is show that the direction is going here, that we're not looking at like, the number of countries that are looking to be added to the EU versus the ones that potentially want to leave. Would be some arguments that I would make. And I don't know all of that just yet, but give me 30 minutes, I probably could find pretty good. You know what I mean?
If you force me into a burden of like, I have to prove that it's flourishing on the negative side, like, and you just have to prove that it's not, like, that would be a fairly reasonable burden, but really hard for me to overcome. So
well, I mean, you could play with the term collapse, right? It's like you're like it's never going to collapse. It's just it could get weaker. It could get weaker, but it won't. Like collapse would have to be that it won't exist anymore at some point in the future. It's going toward the direction of not existing, and just pointing out that some countries want to leave doesn't mean the EU is going to cease to exist.
Yeah, I think I'd have to like it's on the affirmative. You would just want to point out some of the weak points of like, if these countries left, it would be a greater cost to any member than a benefit. And therefore, like the foundation holding it up, preventing collapse basically is hinging upon this country, this country, this country, and then investigate those. Whereas I think, like you said, I would just have to make some kind of pragmatist claims of like, well, that's still actually a pretty big story for those things to collapse. So I like your simplification. Like let's not over dramatize a downturn, like, or a shrink. It's not a collapse. So all right. So collapse is cut out. So now we're down to the last two. What are we debating?
Last two. Okay. These are good.
I'm stoked on both of these topics. I really want to talk about both.
Okay. Now I have a strategy for the one I want. So I'm gonna strike this one.
All right.
There's good arguments. Don't get me wrong. It's like I think there's really, really interesting ones. It's like the volatility of cryptocurrency, and that it, the whole point about cryptocurrency was that it was supposed to replace currency, and it hasn't done that, right? It's just become a different investment that people make, and so it's like, and not only that, but people don't want to treat it like currency. It's just an investment. Like people just hold on to their Bitcoin, right, forever. In the I think there's even a term for people who hold on to their crypto, no matter what.
Hodlers.
Oh, is that what it is?
Like, like it's someone mistyped the word hold, but that just like stuck forever. And so people like rallied around the term like, oh yeah, we're hodlers.
Okay. So like, I think like the good that it was supposed to create, first off, didn't materialize and doesn't look like it's ever going to materialize. And that the harm that has been created was somewhat unpredictable, like the environmental harm, the amount of energy that's needed in order to maintain cryptocurrencies was an unforeseen side effect of it. And it made some things. So like, it's really, really volatile. So a lot of people lose their money, right? And the hodlers just hold on to it forever. It didn't replace currency like it was supposed to, and it's environmentally crap. So,
okay, I forgot about the environmental point. I think that's a solid one. Like, I think that I could get benefits have not made it here yet. I think there's still enough enthusiasm and optimism around people thinking like, yeah, they can get that way, or just pick out like, okay, maybe in the our part of the world in our economic bracket or something like that, but look at what it does in other places. I would broaden this, so it's not that Bitcoin equals cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a hell of a lot more than that, and there's a bunch of uses right now that make it so much better. So I would go for like hard contracts, for example. So making a digital contract that is enforceable on Ethereum or something. Like I would go for some of the applications of cryptocurrency that's not just treating it like a commodity. It can be used for so many things. So just like granted, this topic is not blockchain does more harm than good. It's cryptocurrency, but still you can say like various cryptocurrency backed things. Even if the value goes up or down, the fact that it is unstealable, the fact that it is guaranteed to show ownership, the fact like I would even get into something like NFTs have some basis in blockchain, but like you can consider them a type of cryptocurrency. And while like yes, it's not like a piece of art that's going in value, rather than thinking of it as a commodity, think of it just as utility of like guaranteed provenance and ensuring like intellectual property is never in question or things like that. So I would try and dilute the line so it's no longer we're just talking about like the value of Bitcoin that people that have lost their money on, or like side coins and random stuff, and get deeper into like, but what can blockchain technology do, and try and equivocate those two things and say like, yeah, but all cryptocurrency base is on that. So I think that's where I would go with it and try and like pick out some various examples of like why the world would be better. For example, like title. So when purchasing real property, you have to go through title to show ownership, like transfer ownership of the property and like whatever stuff has ever happened to it. And then assuming that the title company does a good job, you are not liable for a previous owner's liens or any issues they had with it. That is an absolutely obscenely archaic, human-driven, error-laden process that should be done entirely on blockchain and be way better. Like the world would be better. And yes, it would decimate the entire however many $1 billion industry title is, but title shouldn't freaking exist. Title is an archaic, stupid industry that absolutely should be decimated by a blockchain solution. And that's where I would start arguing into like, here are some areas that are just expensive, and if anything, like classist and like create barriers to the marketplace. I also think like the transferability of cryptocurrency, like the ability to move money from one country to another, or one person to another, or like all the things that don't have to go through clearinghouses. So like the volatility is a worthwhile cost of, and I would say like stable coins are cryptocurrency. Like it is still a currency based on the blockchain. And so just getting to that, like USDC is a stable coin pegged to the US dollar and holds that same value, transferable anywhere. And that is better because you don't end up with like countries holding all kinds of gnarly like tariffs and things against each other, or like sanctioning one another, and now money can't move freely, and like hurting people because governments and big entities and whatever get in the way. So I think I'll just rally around the democratization of fiat as like, this is why this is good. So I think I could get like enough pump up crypto bro in me to rally that round. I think that'd be a really fun one.
Okay, well, with the time that we got left, I think this would be our topic right here.
Yep. So your strategy was very accurate. I had crypto was my favorite topic on the neg, and this was my favorite topic on the affirmative.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
you chose
Okay.
wisely to get to what I think is the best topic on the affirmative. This
Yeah.
is such a good topic.
Yeah, I do. I love it because so the reason I like it was because it was a few years ago that I came across a proposal. What was it? Oh, it's about 10 years ago now, where Switzerland was proposed a 12-to-1 pay cap, meaning that the managers or owners of businesses cannot pay themselves more than 12 times what they pay their lowest employee.
Huh. Okay.
Now that was defeated, all right, but there was some public support for that, and I think that like maybe it was like the ratio was too restrictive, and then so I'm like, oh, if I just play with that ratio a bit, it wouldn't be as sort of revolutionary or foundational, right?
Yeah.
I even put this into ChatGPT. I'm like, oh, I wonder what ChatGPT says on this one about like I wanted a planned text, and
Okay.
this is listen to this. Okay, the United States federal government shall enact the Economic Fairness Act, which establishes a maximum wage policy for corporations operating in the United States. Under this policy, no executive or employee of a corporation shall earn more than 100 times the median annual salary of the corporation's employees.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that it's more specific.
Yeah.
I've on the negative, I think you can take out all teeth of any of these plans, or like I guess I'd take out the solvency of any of these plans, because income is different from wage. So I think I would end up like leaning all of my effort into wage. Just because you have a maximum wage does not mean that billionaires won't still exist. Doesn't mean that managers won't make insane amounts. Like it does not solve any income or any like income inequality at all, because it is not wage inequality. It is income inequality. The money that comes from dividends, the money that comes from like partner payouts, the money that comes from investment accrual of interest. That's where like massive money that is the greatest culprits behind income inequality come from. It is not people's W-2 wages that are the biggest gap. So like, yes, it's still a problem that like bank executives are paid so much, but they're not paid W-2 wages, millions of dollars. Right. They're paid like dividends and shit. And that's not wage. That's a different type of income. So I would get like specific on the like taxable IRS terminology for wage versus income and say that this doesn't solve anything no matter what you do.
Okay, you're going to have some issues with ChatGPT because one of the first specific provisions, as it called it, was that this calculation shall include all forms of compensation, including salaries, bonuses, stock options, and other benefits.
Shit.
So, like now the question is like, what are wages, right?
Okay.
And everything hinges around that. And so, like, I do think, yeah, I mean, if I'm on the affirmative, I'm like, yeah, I got to go for this. And now we have to have a philosophical discussion about what counts as a wage. If you win, then it's a topicality, but it's more than topicality. It's like it is, I think, a critical question about what the definition of wages is.
So I think that is like probably one of the most heavily fought over pieces of semantics, like definitions.
Yeah.
Between the IRS and the United States of America. So people saying like, oh no, this is not my wage. I mean, our own company, we have to do that. Like if you own a company, you are at a certain level, you're required to pay payroll, and payroll taxes are accompanied with that. But the entire reason that people start a company, especially with like a smaller business, is because you can pay yourself via dividends that are at a lesser tax bracket. That's the reason why like most LLCs exist, is so that you can get around payroll tax, because payroll tax is way higher. So like wages are meant as like, here's your, stipend as an employee, basically. Like you're going to work this salary or work this many hours, and here's your salary to do that. But to really make more money off of it, and like as the company grows and things, and like to, have an established pegged income based, to like profit and growth, that's how you get like weirder with it. So I think I would start saying that like every loophole that exists is getting around wage, and like those loopholes are already I shouldn't even call them loopholes, like different tax strategies are all well-worn roads to not classify things as wages. Like if you sold your house for more than you bought it, did you make a wage from selling your house for more? Like, no, that's profit because you owned an asset and you sold that asset. That's not your wages. That's income that you made on a growing asset of property. So I think there's like a number of definitions that I could get at and say like, these are not wage.
Yeah, but then that works against you as well, because the minimum wage for tipped employees is different. And the reason why is because they get, they're expected to get a certain amount of tipped wages. So like, even though $7.50 is the federal minimum wage, you can pay somebody $2.13 in certain states because they're getting tips. It's like, but we're counting tips as wages, even though the employer isn't paying that. So you know what I mean? It's like, well, like, if that's not considered a wage because they get compensated through other means, then why can't we consider these other means part of your wages on the top end now? So I think, like, I think the term wages, it's not as black and white. You can, and like, you could start playing around on the edges of that. And if I don't see any other way around this debate. I think that's the whole of this debate. Like, whether or not, I mean, you could go, it's like, no, like, capitalism works in all forms, and like, people should be greedy. Greed is good. Like, you could go that route. I don't think a lot of people are the right judge for you, but I don't think a lot of people are that way, and especially since, like, CEO pay is like 600 times on average, higher than their employees. Bringing it down to 100, is like,
that is very much like that's the story that you want to tell. Like, that's the argument where, like, okay, you don't have a villain. Like, we are punishing the boohoo billionaires. So this is so, like, as a narrative, being on the affirmative is absolutely the side. So if you can get past the wage thing and you can just say, like, it's a maximum income. I had a fascinating theoretical conversation with someone recently that is, like, very much the higher end, like, not with Tres Comas, like, not a billionaire, but still, like, many times over a millionaire, saying that, like, it is obscene to make more after a certain point. Like, the diminishing returns of making more money is just for the love of the game. Like, the only reason why someone that it makes $100 million versus $1 billion versus 10 million versus now we have people in the country that are making in the hundreds of billions, like, off of all of the various things. Like, there is no difference in quality of life there at all. It's just an absolute glut of wealth, like, to the tune of orders of magnitude, like many orders of magnitude. And what that does to an economic system is super broken. So then we have this really, like, gnarly fetishization of wealth, where it's like, oh, but the American dream is you can work hard and be a billionaire. Just look at Jeff Bezos. Like, one, that is not working hard and doing great things. Like, he does not work harder than someone that works in any of the Amazon plants. I guarantee they work way harder than his ass does, for certain. So that, like, let's not equivocate those things. But also, like, it doesn't stifle any kind of entrepreneurial spirit if you still set the maximum wage really high. Like, even if you set it at $1 billion, there are still thousands of billionaires in the US. Like, that's an insane thing to think. So they could all still maintain their B status if they wanted to, but anything beyond that, like, I think what you have to do is say, like, what happens after that? Is it all taxed? Is it all, like, forced donation? Because then it's like, okay, are they just going to donate to their own foundations, which they all already have, and that's why they don't pay taxes. That's why Trump paid $1,500 in taxes for that return that was released. It was like, because you have a bunch of other ways that you can shell your money out to make it appear that your income is low. So crafty CPAs already solved this. That would probably be an argument on the neg. But so anyways, his argument was like, okay, the quality of life doesn't get any better. So if the federal government established here's your infinity credit card, you can use it for absolutely anything. There's no limit to it. Just go nuts. And we are taking all of the money that you make after $100 million or after whatever amount, like, decide what that is. The government would absolutely still come out on the positive on that side. Like, tax revenues would still be insane. And that person could have absolutely anything they want. The only reason for that kind of growth is just vanity of, like, you're not doing more with it. Now, granted, it's like, okay, should the government route these dollars, or is that person doing a better job routing these dollars? Like, you could argue, like, the Gates Foundation does better with their money than the federal government does with their money. Maybe. Like, okay, so we have better jets now, but, like, we still have problems with, poverty. And it's like, okay, well, are billionaires solving things better, or is the federal government solving them better? I just think that this is an endlessly fun debate that could not possibly fit into one round. Like, I would want to see this done by, like, BP, where they can just take a really long time on it.
Wow. Yeah.
Cool.
Those are some amazing debates. Absolutely.
I think this has just such depth and, like, allows a bunch of teams to go at it from a bunch of different angles. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, There you have it, everybody. Very, very well written topics, all 5 of them. If only every round could be like that. All right, challenging with plenty of ground on both sides.
Take note, tournament directors.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we are Tim and Jared for Debate Sensei. We will see you in the future in our next episode. See you later, everyone.
Thanks.